Ever feel like you're just stuck in a loop of bad dates and relationships that, well, go absolutely nowhere? You are definitely not alone. But what if the problem isn't everyone else? What if it's a few hidden patterns in your own approach? Today, we're going to dive into the work of Harvard-trained behavioral scientist and dating coach Logan Ury to uncover the science that can seriously transform your love life. Okay, let's just start with an idea from Logan Ury that might sting a little. Her research kicks off with this really disruptive concept. Our instincts about what makes a good partner, they're often completely wrong. We think we know what we're looking for, but the thing that will actually make us happy is something else entirely. So in this explainer, we're going to shine a huge spotlight on those blind spots. We're going to break down the psychological baggage and the flawed mental models that sabotage our search for a partner, and then we'll lay out a science-backed plan to fix them. First things first, we need a diagnosis, right? You can't fix a problem until you really understand it. Ury argues that for a lot of us, there's this invisible software running in the background of our love lives. And to understand that software, we need to look at a cornerstone of psychology. Now, this concept, attachment theory, isn't just some pop site trend you see on social media. Nope. It comes from foundational research done way back in the 1960s by a psychologist named John Bowlby. He studied how babies reacted when their mothers left a room, and he discovered these deep, foundational patterns that, it turns out, follow us directly into our adult relationships. And this slide right here perfectly illustrates the two dominant insecure styles. You've got the anxious type, who's terrified of being left and is always trying to pull their partner closer for reassurance. And then you have the avoidant type, who's afraid of being controlled or losing their independence, so they're always creating distance. You see the conflict? One chases, the other runs. It's a classic push and pull. Now, this chart shows something absolutely crucial. About half of the general population is what we call securely attached. They're kind of the relationship heroes. But here's the thing. They tend to get into relationships and stay there. This means the active dating pool, the one you're swimming in, is disproportionately filled with anxious and avoidant people. So what happens when these two types meet? Well, they often attract each other, creating this really painful cycle. The anxious person's need for closeness triggers the avoidant's fear of being smothered, which makes them pull away. And that, of course, just confirms the anxious person's worst fear of abandonment, making them chase even harder. For both of them, this painful, exhausting dance starts to feel like what love is. So that's our underlying attachment style, kind of the operating system. Now let's look at how that programming actually shows up in our behavior. Ury identifies 3 super common mindsets or dating traps that keep a lot of us single. But here's the good news. Ury frames these not as character flaws, but as bugs in our dating software. They're just errors in our approach that can be identified and rewritten. All it takes is a simple shift in mindset. So which bug do you have? There's the romanticizer, who believes in soulmates and fairy tale rom-com beginnings. They expect relationships to be totally effortless. Then you have the maximizer, who's on this endless search for the perfect partner, convinced that someone just a little bit better is only one more swipe away. And finally, the hesitator, who feels like they just aren't ready to date yet, always waiting until they lose those last 10 pounds or get that next big promotion. Okay, so we've diagnosed the hidden patterns and the common traps. Now for the prescription. How do we actually break free from this and start rewriting our love story? Ury argues it all starts with one simple, if kind of provocative mindset shift. This is Logan Ury's mantra, and it is the key to everything. That feeling of instant, overwhelming chemistry that we've all been taught to chase, Ury argues it's often a massive, massive red flag. So what even is the spark, really? A lot of the time, it's just our attachment system recognizing a familiar yet really unhealthy pattern. For an anxious person, that feeling of chasing an unavailable, avoidant partner creates this rush of anxiety that our brain mislabels as excitement or chemistry. It's the feeling of the chase, not the promise of a healthy future. And that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? If we stop chasing that initial, explosive feeling, what becomes our new compass? How are we supposed to make dating decisions? Ury suggests a whole new tool to replace that mental checklist. It's a set of questions called the Post-Date 8, and it's like a new operating system for dating. The core idea is to shift from evaluating to experiencing. So after a date, don't evaluate them, evaluate the interaction. How did you feel in your body? Relaxed? Energized? Do they bring out your funny side? The goal here is to prioritize the slow burn, a connection that grows steadily, over those initial and often really misleading fireworks. This leads us to our final, and maybe the most counterintuitive point of all. If we're not supposed to chase the spark, what should we be looking for? Well, the answer requires us to retrain our brains to see why boring is actually way, way better. You ever wonder why we get so drawn to partners who are hot and cold? One minute they're showering you with attention, the next, they're gone. The science behind this is fascinating. It's not just a feeling, it's a literal addiction to a pattern of behavior that keeps us completely hooked. And this slide just illustrates the science perfectly. The psychologist B.F. Skinner found that pigeons would press a lever obsessively if it dispensed food unpredictably. That's a partial reward schedule. A toxic partner does the exact same thing, but with their attention, and it gets us addicted to the highs and lows. A secure partner, on the other hand, offers a continuous reward schedule, consistent, reliable affection. It might feel less exciting because it's not a gamble, but that's what actually builds long-term happiness and peace. So the real takeaway here is that we need to start looking for these qualities. These things aren't boring. They are the absolute bedrock of a successful partnership. Someone who is kind, emotionally stable, and can navigate conflict constructively, that is a catch. They create a sense of peace and safety, which allows you to become the very best version of yourself. And this, right here, is the ultimate mindset shift. Stop relation shopping, as Ury calls it, like you're looking for a product with the perfect features. You need to start thinking about relationshiping. Love isn't something you find, it's something you build, day by day, with someone. It is not about luck or destiny or any of that. It's about consciously choosing to invest in someone, choosing to resolve conflict, and choosing to see the good. You are the architect of your own love story, not some passive character waiting for it to happen to you. And that's the final thought I want to leave you with. The next time you're on a date, just throw out that mental checklist. Stop evaluating. Instead, just pay attention to how you feel. Are you your best self when you're around them? Because in the end, that is the only question that truly, truly matters.